Okay, now everybody put on their clothes. The
Well,
recording started.
if less is more, then imagine how much more is. Because more of your favorite and my favorite, you know him from Court TV and CNN. You know him from mopping the courthouse floor all over Georgia. You know him from rocking all over social media. He is the great Joshua Schiffer, and not by himself today because the ATL is taking over. She also rocks on Court TV, as well as running her own law firm. She is the laser focused, see through the tumbleweeds, knock down, drag out courtroom cerebral assassin that is the amazing Rachel Kaufman. How's it going?
Hey, Rachel!
Josh wrote that, and thank you, Josh.
I was so happy when I was like, no, yes, let's bring Rachel. So, for people that don't know, Rachel and I know each other really well outside of just going to work where we bump into each other. We both trained with some of the same groups. We know many of the same people, and we actually have shared cases together. Rachel is someone that I rely on because she has got an amazing perspective. She is an absolute dogged litigator.
I
Uh,
certainly hope so because we're cheating on Franz talking to her, so it
we
better
are
be
cheating
worth
on
it.
we are cheating on Franz, who is in, I believe, Montenegro or Serbia. But when
Franz
I
might like that scenario. I don't know.
yeah, when I say dogged, Rachel is also amazing because she is one of the true great loving people and loves animals, especially dogs, and has been the
Yeah, I have
driving
three
force.
here. I apologize if they misbehave already.
My dog walker
They're,
might drive mine off too, so it might just be a barking thing. We'll work it into the conversation.
That
So
would be a great podcast, dogs
well,
and what.
imagine what they're saying.
there was
But
actually Josh, you might because you're our music expert. There was a band by the name of Cananis. And their lead singer was a dog. The dog's name was Basil. It passed away a little while ago, and they made a big thing. But they would just play metal music, and there was a dog barking into the microphone the whole
Long
time.
live Basil.
yeah, Rachel is one of the driving forces behind Canine Cellmates, which is a super awesome program where criminal justice is so often focused on punishment and not the whole person. By introducing animals and a care relationship and things like that, you help people struggle into becoming more human, more people centered by giving them something to live for and to care about, since the absence of care is one of the things that drives people into a lifestyle that involves law enforcement. And by bringing animals, very often shelter animals, abused animals, animals that don't have another great pathway, Rachel brings them into penal situations and gets amazing results from these criminals that a lot of people just kind of want to throw away. And one of the great things about Canine Cellmates is it's
Thank you.
solving so many problems at the same time. And those are the kind of solutions that we should all support. Um,
Win-wins
yeah,
versus lose-lose, which is the criminal justice system is a lose-lose. Everyone's losing. And the reason that they're losing is because you're expecting it'd be like a kid who's failing in school, but not getting him a tutor and wondering why he's still failing.
The old saying is catch up to the other kids by going slower.
yeah. It really, we've got these individuals who society, for one reason or another, has tried to discard. And they don't have the same relations and education and emotional maturity and development because they never had those opportunities. We're talking about people that didn't have the home life that we want people
Yeah.
to have.
Parents that didn't value what kind of grades they got, that valued
Yeah.
more that they stood on their ground in the parking lot against other kids. That was more important than doing well in school. So anyways, yeah, they start off, it's just, my mom always asked me who I think I would be if I had different parents. She used to work with kids in the foster care system. So I knew that and I do know that if I was raised by people that everyone loves their parent, I mean, they may hate their parents, but ultimately, like, you want to please your parents. And if your parents tell you to like go fight instead of like use your words, or that's how they fight, that's how you think you solve problems. That's how you end up in jail, where there's more fighting. Then they let you loose and then wonder why you keep fighting.
A lot of the times in criminal justice, we see the impact of modeling as a child. If the child never gets examples of better behavior, of good decision making processes, of good goals, and instead are following parents that may not have the best direction themselves, those kids don't grow up to be super successful or as successful as we'd want.
Takes an extraordinary person. Mimi, stop. It takes an extraordinary person. She says, no, it doesn't. I could do it. That's what she said. Okay. She probably wants to be on film, but yeah, Josh, thank you for talking about Canine Cellmates. Yeah, I'm just really into like, I used to be really into crime. I deal with mostly violent felonies. Now I want more peace in my free time.
You were saying you're having a particularly difficult week.
Yeah. So here's a 5-minute, it's a great snippet. The nightmare of 2024 began January 14th, where I had a client. He was a 22-year-old with no criminal history. He was a juvenile diabetic. His mother brought him to the hospital because she was concerned at the ER. This was 2 years ago, because she was concerned about him possibly, his blood sugar, whatever it was off, and he was not sleeping, and he was experiencing what appeared to be like psychosis. When he was at the ER, they decided to involuntarily hospitalize him for 72 hours, which doctors have the right to do under certain
Happens
situations.
regularly.
And they, I think that that's a very important thing. And we want people proactively when their loved one is not doing well mentally, we want them to be in a safe space. Mother takes him to the hospital takes him to a mental hospital. He's on his 72nd hour. He's a large black male, is what I should note. I have Rottweilers. I like big dogs. People think big dogs are, the big black dog is the scariest dog. There's a point to the story. So he ends up attempting to, I guess, flee the facility. They had put him on some brand new medication that has the side effects that they read on TV, like might cause you to be suicidal, might cause you shouldn't operate machinery. Don't
Rectal bleeding.
Might cause you to jump a bench in the middle.
That's why you're in a mental hospital when they're trying to put you on it and stabilize you.
Right.
Anyhow, he ends up in what this private mental hospital calls their healing garden. This is at nighttime. There are lights in the healing garden. However, none of the employees know how to turn them on. They say the doors were locked. It's supposed to be a lockdown facility. He ends up in the yard. These mental health providers are terrified of the big dog that got loose in the yard. That's why I'm explaining it. It's not like they're chasing around a little poodle in the yard with no lights on. They're all scared. So they call the police, even though he's not hurt anybody or threatened to hurt anybody.
And
Long story short,
in a secure mental facility.
He's involuntarily there. He has no choice but to be there. They call police with guns come in. There's no place for them to leave their guns. They bring guns into a mental hospital and they attempt to, corner my client. It's all on body cam. You can't see anything because there's no light. They're on some wooden ramp that's slippery. They fall over. It's like buffoonery. It would make a funny cartoon if it didn't end up in tragedy. Because you've got two cops with their guns. All they have to do is try to help this. The mental health provider should have been doing it, but all they're trying to do is get this guy secure back into the facility. I said, telling him that there's Reese's inside would have been better, or there's a pizza on the way would have probably worked. But instead, they call police with guns. They all fall on this wooden ramp. My 300-pound black client is in between these two officers. The officer's holster breaks. My client, reasonably, is probably scared he's going to get shot. Goes for the gun, but that's what I was thinking. Maybe he was trying to protect himself. The officer gets grazed in the leg while they're all trying to retain onto this weapon. The other officer shoots my client in the back. His gun jams. I guess luckily or unluckily at this point, my client survives. He gets shot once. The officer's grazed in the leg. My client goes to jail for aggravated assault on a peace officer. I'm sorry, they call it a peace officer. Aggravated assault on a peace officer, interference with government property. When my client got control of the gun, he tried to shoot himself in the head. Luckily, he was not able to do that successfully. This all happens while he's supposed to be in a secure mental hospital. Then they take him
while he is in a secure facility.
He is in a secure, so he can't go anywhere else. So then they take him to the hospital. He's intubated. He's got staples in his stomach. They have to put, there's shrapnel that stays there. This was March of 2022. This case is in Gwinnett County. This kid's been in jail. I've had at least 6 bond hearings. The things I've attempted and done in relation to trying to get this DA's office to see clearly. The officers said he was trying to hurt himself. We just want him to get help. No criminal history, can't get in bond. Everyone's scared of him. and I think it's because there was an aggravated assault on a peace officer. You know, the prosecutors, when it comes to individuals that they want to especially protect, the facts don't matter. I have crazy. Anyways, 2 years later, here we are. I went and saw him like 2 weeks ago. He's still in jail, which which I've been talking about forever. He ends up dying on Sunday. I said, so that's the whole point. I'll stop. Somehow he died in the jail. Before we had a chance to have a trial, where I was ready to go, I was like, let's have a trial, because if you look at your own evidence, prosecutors, you'll see that the police that were there say he didn't mean to hurt us, meaning like he had no criminal intent. Plus he's psychotic, even though the Department of Behavioral Health says that he was criminally responsible. They don't even know if that he even did it. Anyways, I would have gotten a not guilty. He should have been out on bond. Everybody fought me, and he died in the jail. And now it's under circumstances that don't appear obviously to be suicide or homicide. So we're waiting on the audit.
Which I don't get that part, and I don't trust him as far as I can throw him.
It's probably one or the other, right?
Yeah, if anybody will lie to you, it's a jail.
Now, we talked about this a little bit last week with the log jam of the legal system, where it sounds like you had a plan, you had something worked out. You said that whole thing went down in 2022. Is this just the way it is now, where you have to wait on? I don't want to say it's an open and shut case, but it's definitely something that you guys could have sorted out with the prosecution and all that. That you're here, 18 months later.
I told you the lack of efficiency. I mean, it's a joke. It's a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. It's like these prosecutors, by analogy, are the worst drivers. They're driving in the left lane and they're driving slow. Okay, that's who they are, and they think, and because they have all the power, and until it's ready for trial, they don't even look at the case. It just pushes through the pipeline. Certain cases get a lot of attention, but certain cases, like Black men who are in mental hospitals, nobody cares about, but they're scared of. No criminal history. I like to think about how every bit of that situation would have been different if it was me.
So what's interesting is we had Matthew Mangino on last week, and he's been a prosecutor and a defense attorney, and we were discussing if that's an advantage, on the defensive side for the prosecution side. Now, do you think that door swings both ways if more prosecutors had some defensive,
Every year they should have to take 5 pro bono cases in a different county as a defense attorney. Yes.
Yeah, that's actually come up.
Go to jail for a week.
100%. And so here's my perspective on that is I do a lot of transition work with people that are moving from a state job to a private practice job, because it's just something that I've done a bunch of, and I like building the network. Every former prosecutor within the first 6 months of private practice has a moment where they're like, are you kidding? How is this the way that the system works? And they come and they look at you like you're crazy, and they're like, Josh, I called this person and I emailed them and they just ignored me. I'm like, that's regular. Like, I have senior prosecutors that people like, oh, they got to treat you so well. No, half my time is spent literally hunting people down, trying to get them to respond to work that is just sitting on their desk.
But this is a great transition. There is no accountability amongst prosecutors. So when somebody dies in the jail, and I had another client die in the jail in 2021, another similar mental health, no criminal history. He actually hung himself, supposedly. But the truth of the matter is that the lack of accountability amongst prosecutors, there's no oversight. And so there's this, it allows them to just build, power. They want to expand their power. Power corrupts, especially unchecked power. And they are responsible, even though people die in the jail. The overcrowding in the jail is because they're not letting people out on bond and they're not moving cases. Yeah. They're indirectly responsible, in my opinion, for everything that happens in the jail.
And just like what we've done with modern food, you know what? You haven't had to kill much of what you eat. Most people don't kill their food. It's one of the things we've done as a society. Yeah, we took our abattoirs and our slaughterhouses and we hid them, and then we paid a very small group of people to do the really nasty stuff, because only they'll be exposed to it. And we all get boneless, skinless chicken breasts in a grocery store that are sterile. Criminal law is the same way. Yeah. The prosecution has been removed from having to deal with what their decisions wrought.
Completely
They don't
desensitized.
have to go to jails. They don't have to understand what it's like to wait 30 days, 60 days, 6 months for a hearing date, then show up and be told, I wasn't on the calendar. Oh, yeah, we're gonna have to reschedule that. Oh, I was busy. Like the lack of accountability, there's no enforcement mechanism saying, hey, you didn't do your job very well, state, so there's a punishment. So there's never a fix. No one
In a
ever,
private entities would not allow their employees when people, if a defense attorney calls, you call them back. In most like private companies, they just ignore call. Well, I know no, that's the difference. Is like this, the DA's office, at least Fulton County and, you know, Gwinnett County, because they're on my, I will never forget. I'm an elephant, I think, as they say. If these prosecutors that I'm dealing with in this case, if they ever become defense attorneys, you're not helping them either, Josh. We're not helping them. I will never forget what they did. There's blood on their hands, even if those not.
You're gonna fix not calling people back by not calling them back.
Well, no, but it's so disgusting how you also see good prosecutors, of which there are many. Then you see the bad prosecutors, and they never interact. Like your good circuits never cross with the bad circuits. So the exact.
But hope you don't get the bad circuit. Hope you don't get the bad circuit on the wheel.
That's really it. And half the questions on like the listservs and stuff are like, hey, I've never been to County X before. Why are they being completely insane with this charge? Like domestic violence is a perfect example. You get arrested on a basic misdemeanor domestic violence in the metro area. You know, you're going to go to court the next day. You're going to get a bond. There's going to be a no further contact. It's going to get sorted out. Nobody's life ends. Well, unless you're in one county who doesn't arrest people for misdemeanor domestic violence, makes them all felonies because misdemeanors are constitutionally entitled to a bond. So by calling it a felony, they just don't have to give you a bond. Then after 2 or 3 weeks, after reviewing everything, they say, hey, we've decided not to make this a felony. So then
they're put you in felony jail. They're gonna put you in jail with felons.
Yeah, and you get a bond. And like the abuse that we see, you can go months in Fulton County without getting called back, without getting emails, without any communication. And if you call the office and say, who's the prosecutor in charge of this? They're going to list either no one, or they're going to list 1 of 2 or 3 of the elected DA's top lieutenants who are so busy you're never going to get in with them.
Meanwhile,
the power only goes at the top.
Do you want to transfer into the how power corrupts? We'll go there. The good story.
Fulton County, it seems like it's the perfect example. I mean, I know it happens all over the country, but it's not just the Donald Trump stuff, but like you were saying with the wheels turning slow and all this sort of thing, is like, is there a solution to fixing this problem? Because again, we brought it up before. You're overloading an already overloaded system. You know, from the defensive time, can you guys see one problem in there that you could take out that would help the wheels turn a little bit faster?
It's like beeping at the person in the left lane, and they're like, "We're not going to speed up." It's like you're like, get out of the left lane, and they're like, just because you're asking, we're not moving. It's that kind of thing.
And the real problem is that we've got 159 different little kingdoms being run by different DAs, and the same issue can manifest differently in 2 different counties. Fulton County, there's a certain kind of fixes that are needed. Cobb County, there's a different kind of fix. Gwinnett County, there's a different fix. Forsyth County, there's a different fix. For example, like a real common one that we deal with is DUI. You get a DUI in Forsyth County versus Fulton County, even though they're contiguous, 2 completely different. Like you're not even going to feel like you got charged in the same way. It is like
I'm going to give you an example.
Crimes.
Okay, here's an example. This morning, I pro bono crusade for cannabis. I don't know if you knew that about me, Derek.
Well, now I do. This was, I told you, I wanted to have you on, and I didn't want to cheat on Franz, and Josh was like, the hell with Franz, I'll take the beat. So I was only able to do a little bit of homework on you.
Well, that's something that's really important to me that I love to talk about. But this morning I went to court because there was a 17-year-old black amazing athlete who's actually, I think he's already committed to Missouri State or for some D1 scholarship, some great scholarship. Okay. From California, was in Atlanta, was parked in his a apartment complex, but I guess was maybe taking up 2 spots. Atlanta police pull up on him and smell marijuana, toss the car, find 3 grams. 3 grams.
Next to
Where
nothing.
I'm
For
wiping
those of
off.
you who don't know about marijuana, 3 grams is not that much.
It's a joke.
At least it wasn't when I was in college.
No, it's the measurements didn't change. It's still 3 grams, and that's in Atlanta, in a city where they claim to be more liberal, and they put in the news that it's been decriminalized. That they're going to issue tickets. And I actually don't even know if, APD has I don't know if they have the discretion to still arrest them.
Yeah. So
but that's the problem. If they're there's more. So then there's more. So then they arrest this kid. Okay. And then we go to court, and I keep going to court because they keep telling me that he's in California. Like, I'll get a doctor's note. And it's a black male prosecutor, which feels, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what is going on here? Meanwhile, I could just tell stories for days. There's people in that courthouse that are on the bench. They're smoking too. How do I know?
Yeah.
I can smell it.
And then I go to court.
Not smell it, firsthand knowledge. Maybe I smoked with them. I don't know. I'm just saying, everyone has to get real and stop ruining certain people's lives and not others. But that's going to clog the docket. They need to do less. They need to do less.
What Rachel's talking about, the selective enforcement, that's the issue. Because I was in court this morning in DeKalb County, and there was somebody on the row. You could smell that weed from 50 feet away, and it was fresh. And it just reeked. And not even pretend reek, man. I'm talking Fish Concert circa 1996 weed.
No, we're talking 2023, that new dankety.
And we're just all sitting there.
For those of you who don't know, is an alternative rock band that maybe
it is a jam band. Thank you very much.
That's Gucci Mane pushes my cologne. That's what you say to the officer.
So literally, it reeks of weed in this courtroom and nothing. Meanwhile, if an officer like Rachel's client wants to harass you, man, that smelled weed. Didn't find any, but it smelled like weed. And that's where our probable cause came. And that's why this decriminalization thing is just garbage, because it's
do it or don't.
Probable cause. It's still a reason to investigate. It's still a reason to shake down these young people who are, by and large, minority and other individuals that the officer just wants an opportunity to intercept.
Well, hope that there's more in the car. He hoped that there was more in the car. He wanted to toss the
fishing expedition.
Isn't the whole marijuana thing though kind of first on the list? For a police officer to kind of just,
they misuse the fact that it smells so good. They misuse it's so terrible. It's so terrible. But
and the number of cases that start with, well, I smelled some marijuana, so I then did an investigation. Marijuana never gets charged. Marijuana never gets even mentioned again. And it's, hey, we needed probable cause to enter the private, theoretically free from unreasonable search and seizure. And it's going to allow the state in. And that's
then they have to justify
all this BS about decriminalization is it still allows the officers to use the tool to harass people.
Yeah. And if they didn't, then maybe we'd have less cases in the pipeline. It's just, we all have to look at efficiency. I'm becoming right wing. I'm like, we need smaller government. I need less funding.
The circle.
I'm so far left, I'm right. That's what I tell people. So far left.
Welcome to the Down with the Government show.
And she's gone so far left, she made a right turn.
I'm a radical.
I'm telling you, that's what it is though, because we can't trust the system to not do awful, awful things given the opportunity. Because even if we had a 1,000 well-trained officers, a couple of the crappy ones are going to abuse the hell out of the law. And then the law is set up to create rules that kind of protect everybody because we're all doing the right thing together, right? No, that's where you get the most ridiculous rules and policies out there, where we have given up all of our privacy, where we now allow the state into our lives so many different thousands of ways that we never even would have considered previously.
Biggest gang on the block.
Yep.
So just going back a little bit, because I, as much as I don't want to talk about Alex Murdaugh, with
We can.
the problems that you guys have working within the justice system, do you see a case like that has gone on for 25 years and it's going to go on for another 20 years and say this is such a waste of time and resources? Like, how is there not a way to fast track something like this?
So there are cases that last forever because the person just wants to keep spending money. And there are people who are literally going to keep spending money because at some point the state, for lack of better, gets sick of it. And a lot of times appeals that are okay appeals, what really you're appealing for is they don't want a bad opinion, so they're going to replead the guy or find a way to get a remedy that then ends the appeals process. But that's private money issues. With public money and stuff like that, there are so many different efficiencies that exist that we just don't take advantage of because of policies and because of discretion and how people want to run things.
Can a judge or anybody up and down that whole system, like with Murdaugh, for example, kind of step in and say, like, we got to wrap this up?
A judge with a spine. This is what happened. I'm not a judge. I have patience problems. So like I'm in the left lane, I'm speed. There's only certain things that are really relevant to me. So if you're wasting time, the process. So Murdaugh, I have no problem with him appealing and having the right to an appeal, all that stuff. What I take issue with is the dramatization, the stretching out, just get to the point. Just get to the point. And that's the thing sorry, I almost swore. That's the other issue that I have with.
You're allowed to swear here. It's okay.
With the special grand jury in Fulton County that was just looking at evidence against Donald Trump and the other people, 8 months just to look at evidence. So, I mean, you can get 2 defense attorneys to look at that case or any competent prosecutor and have the whole thing done without a special grand jury and all that stuff within a month.
Yep.
It's inexcusable. It's inexcusable.
It's manufactured issues, and the state manufactures issues the way that it wants to present them. Fani Willis sat on that report. Fani Willis sat on that calendar because she was getting told from other stakeholders and do it this way, do it that way. She could have moved way faster. She chose specifically not to.
You think with a highly publicized case like that, you would move it by quick to kind of show
no,
the best?
No, because remember, your win and her win are not the same win.
I thought it was unreasonable while asking for more money and that there was a backlog and people were dying in the jail. No, I mean, I think openly it's reasonable to think that spending more time and money did not make sense then. And I didn't know why, but now we know why.
Yeah, you have 2 court cases in Fulton County that have basically eaten 2 judges and at least a dozen prosecutors and removed them
insane
in order to deal with 2 cases, one of which is completely nonviolent and political and being prosecuted elsewhere. The other one has been so mishandled, they gave away the farm to a bunch of lower level people where they all got gimme please. And now they just keep going after the most funded and the most well-represented one of them all in an unbelievably inefficient and disrespectful way to the rest of the system because they're doing a RICO charge to go after one guy.
No, and a judge could speed it along. But I think a lot of times they're so much more scared of doing something outside of what the prosecutor wants them to do.
Because judges are terrified.
They won't do it.
Judges are terrified of prosecutors.
I reached out so Josh and I went to the Trial Lawyers College in Wyoming, the Jerry Spence's Trial Lawyers College.
I've heard legendary place.
So one of the guys that was in my class actually was an defense attorney in Vegas. So when the flying felon thing happened, I love they call him the flying felon. It's so great. The flying felon thing happened. I was like, hey, what do you know about the judge? He said she was an evil former prosecutor. And so I think that's also important. We all have to ask, why are prosecutors suited for as like a career move for judgeship? They go from persecuting / prosecuting people, depending on who they are, to then apparently with no further training becoming the unbiased ruler of basically how every discretionary decision goes.
King
And
of
the
the
governor's
justice system.
point, they need neutrality training. I've been saying this forever. I don't understand.
And there's almost no / by design no oversight over how judges are necessarily chosen, because in Georgia, while they are theoretically nonpartisan elected, it is extraordinarily rare for a judge to get that job as a judge without the governor tapping them on the shoulder and saying, you're the one I choose for this position. Because the governors have this appointment ability, and then governors use it to stack, where if they are in the same track, they promote one so that they can promote another, so that they can promote another. So one change in position allows them to give 3, 4, 5, 6 new jobs. They very clearly are used to pay people back. Like, that's what appointments are for. And then no one can tell you squat about whether they are a good judge or a bad judge. And then the agency that is charged with disciplining, supervising, watching the judges is so toothless. They literally, we've known the people running it. They'll tell you how toothless it is, where they can make recommendations and the Georgia Supreme Court goes, we're really not going to do anything about that. Their judges,
no accountability for power. That's
dozens of complaints.
I want to hold them all accountable.
And you can't even get acknowledgement of the number of complaints because it's secret. You don't want to hurt the judges. The system of justice for judges is so one-sided. You can't even get your complaint published or shared until the judges had lots of due process that's one-sided and secretive.
Is there any issue? Obviously, problems with judges here, and boys club, and you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Do you come across in court or just in the legal system in general judges that for a fact are difficult or don't like you for whatever reason, and you kind of have to change your approach, or is it just I just gotta go in there and do the best job I can, and hopefully it rolls my way?
We had a case together where Josh can.
I've got judges where literally if you walk into my office and we look at your case, there are a couple judges where I will either increase my price so dramatically you do not want to hire me, or I will just tell you on the front end, you can hire me for that. I'm going to hire someone else to come in because you don't want me going up against that particular judge. Now that's a very small number.
You can hire me, but I'm going to lose.
Yeah, no, well, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's not by your own fault. It's the fact that these people, to take your emotions on they're just not capable. No one's really capable of being ultimately neutral, but you can at least appear neutral. You can at least not bully defense attorneys, not embarrass defense attorneys in front of their clients because I don't know, you have a bone to pick with them. You're jealous. I'm like, are you jealous? I don't know what their problem is. But also changing up your strategy changes really, it's hard to do when they hate you.
Yep.
So
their lawyers were literally, their reputation is, I'm hard to work with, and you don't want to deal with. One of our dear friends that Rachel used to work with is very upfront. He doesn't negotiate ever. The only thing you're ever going to hear from him is we're ready. And he literally doesn't negotiate because he's gone through it so many times, and he tends to do really big cases. And negotiations are dumb because they're never going to offer anything that you would want to take. And the only thing you can do is go to trial until the state tells you that they're not willing to prosecute your client to that level. And that's just their reputation. There are lawyers that are known as plea lawyers versus fight lawyers. There are lawyers that are known for one thing rather than another. And hopefully your lawyer that you choose is smart enough to put you first and bring in the right kind of lawyers. And that's exactly, when I've got a case that's screaming for a Rachel, I won't take a step without bringing in a Rachel in a heartbeat. And there are people that use me for the same way. I like
the lawyer that doesn't negotiate. I go right off the bat, I am not going to negotiate.
What are we talking about?
Mike, on the big rapes and the child molestations and all that.
Wait, who?
Jacobs.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that's the thing. He's been successful enough that he knows how to do it. I think at some point, you have a good run, he should run it out. but at some point it'll be a mistake and you'll
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
miscalculating changes your entire courage. All the courage I have is confused at this point. But yes, no, I mean, I think that that's a great strategy. They dick around forever without looking at the evidence. You want to tell me 20 years? You haven't even looked at the case. That's
Yeah.
all the time. That's all the time. So anyways, yeah, being a defense attorney is like, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. It's like being a Cleveland fan. You have to be willing to take hits. You have to be willing to get back up and saying maybe next year. You just get beaten down, but you still get back up. And nothing makes me more excited to get back up than being pushed down.
It is very much like the Chumbawamba song. Like
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
I was going to say, for Cleveland Browns, you guys have been saying maybe next year for the last 55 years.
I know. And we still say it. And that's why I'm a great defense attorney. Because
Drew Carey being a cultural hero thing.
Sorry, speaking of attorneys quitting and not negotiating, the Chad Daybell thing, it's not just him. What do you guys think is the main reason why, not even at the beginning of a trial or that early into a trial, when a lawyer says, like, listen, this isn't for me?
So you got to figure out what the win condition is. And on Daybell, since it's a complicated DP case with multiple stakeholders, anything that slows down the process arguably serves him well. This whole, what lawyer are they going to approve, what lawyer is available, the existential version of me just looks back and goes, well, it's another day without needles, and it's going to be another 6 months to a year without needles. And the more they can do that, the better for Chad, because he's going nowhere.
Yeah, it's the last control he has is who his lawyer is, really.
So it's just another thing that's going to slow down the legal system.
Yeah,
the moment you get into death penalty, everything changes. Everything changes.
Yeah,
I can't remember. Did they try to do it for Lori?
She's gonna face the death penalty in the second trial, I thought, right?
Yeah. So these are the kind of things, I mean, efficiency wise, you're kind of like, okay, I mean, I guess everyone deserves justice, but the fact that this is dragging out, this has been years now.
Well, and the death penalty in general, take away the right, wrong morality of whether you believe the state can kill people. From a purely economical perspective, it is the least efficient, stupid thing we do. You will spend millions of dollars and tremendous bandwidth within our system chewing on the most esoteric and small and stupid parts of death penalty litigation, whereas every one of those cats would take life without parole. Like, that's just the thing. Like, it's all about this vengeance of, we get to kill you, we get to put you to death for this awful thing you do, and it costs so much. It is indefensible.
Well, and also it ends up being a show about them. I mean, that's, you don't want, I remember watching the Aurora shooter back in the day, the Batman movie. I mean, I remember the death penalty phase. It just becomes I'm not saying that you shouldn't have them privately where there's a mitigation discussion about, or that Nicholas Cruz, how he was
that's
raised.
The one that always goes to me. They all want to be stars. They all want to be famous. The judge,
you're letting them do it when you make the whole trial about them.
Yep. And that's what also the politicization of these big cases. Every time one of these prosecutors is making the decision on a high profile case, there's a thumb on the scale going, well, this is going to get me reelected from the people who vote for DAs because they're tough on crime. Even when they lose, they get to go down in a flaming pile of glory and say, hey, we fought to put that guy to death because we're law and order and we demand justice. And these tricky scumbag defense lawyers lied, cheated, and stole our victory of murdering a guy.
I know. Meanwhile, you're prosecuting people for murdering people. It's the pot calling the kettle black. Prosecutors are the pot.
If you want to look at the ridiculousness of the whole situation again, we had Matthew Mangino on last week, and he wrote a book and all that about the death penalty and everything. And they think all countrywide, 18 to 22 or so people get put to death every year. Yeah, everybody on death row dies of old age or,
the medical costs of these.
It is like Kirk Nermy was the first one who told me a death penalty or life in prison and all that, the costs of it. And it's just, it's mind boggling.
We should care about reproductive responsibility on the front end to prevent, there's so many things that can prevent filling prisons and then like billing for each person's like medical and life. I mean,
It's the ultimate
no one
make
wants to do it.
work.
It is.
It's literally in states like Louisiana, which is a horrific sentencing state, they've used life without parole against thousands of people. Angola is an old age home. You go talk to the amount of money they spend hosting a bunch of decrepit old men who have been sitting in prison for 20, 30, 40 years and are just waiting to die. It's horrific, not just from a fiscal perspective, but from a base morale. What? Yeah, a 70-year-old with Alzheimer's? Yeah, let's make sure that guy stays in prison.
Yeah,
let's
keep him in for another 15 years.
Yeah, let's not free up those funds for proactive programming or cut. No, let's sink it into the worst possible investment, keeping an old decrepit person in a cage. And it's baffling.
We all paid for it.
Yeah. Which is, again, no one actually has to face the costs. All of these DAs love talking about time and putting people in prison and da-da-da-da-da. None of them have to pay that bill. None of them get hey, your discretionary decision on this one of your thousands of cases comes with this cost attached to it.
Yeah, cost doesn't matter. I mean, look at, it's just scale up and then keep that scale. Don't ever, to ever decrease funding for a DA's office. I would love to think.
The idea that we have spent how much money on things like weed, where now we've pretty much realized that weed was nothing like we were taught it was and should never have cost or been such a focus, and in fact harmed the war against more serious medical drug issues because we spent so much time focused on weed.
Because it smells.
The heroin and the opiates and all this other stuff that kills people. Now we're not in a good position to defend against fentanyl. Now we've still got a whole bunch of non-violent weed smokers, weed dealers clogging up the system, and then they use weed as the excuse to start new cases constantly. And no one cares about that back end.
There was also, as far as marijuana was concerned, I know when it first started getting decriminalized, that there were still people in jail on charges that weren't even arrestable anymore, and they still couldn't get out because, again, the whirlwind of paperwork is so inefficient.
There are DEA eradication programs where we spend millions of dollars flying military-grade helicopters around different states, spraying a plant.
How dare they?
Other states are trying to figure out how to grow more of in tax.
Yeah, where I can get a prescription for that. Excuse me. I mean, and then there, just a lot of stealing. We're not even gonna get into civil forfeiture today, probably, but Josh and I have a lot of fun here. Where are you, Derek? Where are you?
Toronto.
Okay, I'm from Cleveland, so you're from up north. Okay.
It was minus 26 this morning.
I was gonna say Toronto is not fooling around with the icy cold.
No, it's rough.
Yeah, because it's in the 30s here, and Georgia is about shut. Like,
I see everybody down south. It's freezing. It's freezing. I'll show you. If you saw the video I shot on Twitter this morning, that was actually minus 26. I was preheating my car.
Dude, we canceled school yesterday for a strong frost, and I'm like, all right, people, come on.
I know you guys have a ton of stuff to get to, and we're only supposed to. If we got a few more minutes, I just wanted to follow up on something quick from the last time we talked.
I'm opening the door for my dog so he doesn't pee in the house. Hold on.
Okay. A lot of people were blown away. And again, you and I talked about it on the show where the audio shot to shit, was that they can bail on a RICO trial halfway through, but still use the people that they've plead out and all that. That still sticks. There's not a double jeopardy issue there.
It depends on how the initial trial ends. And that's why the mistrial discussion is so fascinating. So
YSL,
So Rachel, basically what we were talking about is in YSL. Now that they've gotten the baby pleas off the bottom end, and they're down to the final 5 or 6 top people, and the state's case is such a disaster, why wouldn't the state force a mistrial and then say, all right, we're not going to try it like this, we'll just re-indict as individual charges,
double win.
They double down. What are you talking about? All they do is double down. They're not.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. And
Glanville, she will play to the edges. Adrian Love, ADA, the head prosecutor on the YSL case, is very, she's a very competent but sick individual who really crosses lines that she knows she can cross, knowing that the judge will give her and the prosecutors way more leeway than they should. It creates appellate issues because some of the, just some of the way that she'll ask questions, she's delays, turns over things.
The allegations against her are of the same tone and tenure with every defense lawyer that has extensive experience with her. And I can't help but give them a lot of credence because I'm watching them happen with late disclosures, stuff that should have been handled elsewhere. And it comes off as, oh, they're so busy. Or is it coming off as, no, that's purposeful, hide the ball, sandbagging, incompetence, trying to get every last benefit that you can by breaking the system. And that I do not put past them at all. And if they feel that the state's case is crapping out and can force a mistrial and just go against them individually, they absolutely will, because Brian Steele has enough appellate issues in this case already. God forbid they actually get to a verdict.
No, if it's a mistrial though, I mean, they spent more than 9 months. How many months did they spend?
10 months just on jury selection. We're on
picking a jury.
Yeah.
They weren't there this week because I guess Judge Glanville is also the chief judge. So they're just not in court. It's disjointed. It's disjointed. It's a mess. And if they double down because if it becomes a failure and they have to redo something, they can't just let them go now. I mean, they're stuck. And so that's why they're doubling down. And I think that they've realized that this judge is not going to grant a mistrial because, I mean, it would take something severe because he would be embarrassed too if ultimately this case just.
And we have differing opinions on Glanville and what he will or will not do, other than here's what we 100% know about Glanville. He's towards the very end of an extraordinarily distinguished career. He has very little left to prove professionally. He has done everything in the military that you can possibly do. He's done everything in a judicial career that he can possibly do. And I know that he is looking at whatever his next chapter is. How and why this case gets dealt with at the end, it's up to him because he's got a wealth to choose from off the menu. The state and defense have done things that could justify a mistrial. I think that there's another 2-3 months of testimony at a minimum. I don't know if Fulton County can keep it going that long.
Well, we've touched on 3 of the 25 things I wanted to discuss.
We could talk forever. I mean, Josh and I could do
this again tomorrow, man. Yeah, Rachel, we'd sit around my kitchen. Rachel, come on over.
We'll do the same thing.
Camera up.
You guys are absolutely awesome. So if you want or need more of what you've seen or heard today, check out Rachel Kaufman on Twitter at RKRealTalk, on Instagram at _Rachel Kaufman. You can use the international network to Google her, Rachel Kaufman. And if you need some legal advice in Georgia, go check out www.rachelkaufmanlaw.com. And maybe you got caught cheating on Franz Borghardt and you need a male lawyer. A very masculine Joshua Schiffer can be found on socials at Lawyer Schiff on Twitter, and just Google Joshua Schiffer to find him everywhere else, or visit www.jdgrouplaw.com and check them out both on TV, and they're everywhere. You guys are absolutely awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Derek, and Rachel. Thank you, and everybody. Rachel, literally one of my favorite lawyers. She's someone that I bring in for my clients that I care the most about, because she's not one of these ones that's always out there getting headlines, because she's winning cases. Like, you look at her and you're like, oh, it's this little Rachel, and she's from Cleveland. She likes football.
Oh, I wouldn't mess with her after this.
I can be really mean.
Rachel has spent more time with some of the most challenging people out there. Is zero fear, zero. Like,
I love a bad guy because I'm badder.
I do love the approach with the no nonsense and not beating around the bush. You're like, this trial starts at 9. I want it done by 9:05.
I'm an efficiency person. I mean, I quote Jay-Z because I drove by the fork in the road and I went straight. I'm just trying to get to just get there.
And
that's why don't even start with music. We could do another hour.
There are
would you-
DAs that see a Rachel on a file, and it's one of the reasons people like me hire her. And it's like, oh shit.
Well, they hate it. 'cause I
Don't just have somebody that's gonna phone it in and no, Rachel goes to the mat. And if I can throw that in the face of some prosecutor, literally did that with a case where it was, oh, you know this, okay, brought in the Rachel because it was the guy, Rachel was the one that the DA wanted the least across the aisle. Like, and that's the power of the network.
Well, I'm honored to have you on here. If I ever break the law in Georgia, I don't know who I'm going to call.
All right, y'all. I got to run and go get a little girl.
Yes, go. Everybody go. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
That was really
Thanks,
fun.
y'all. I'll
Okay,
talk
let's
to y'all
send her my
soon.
love. But okay, we'll do that. I mean, I'll do this whenever you want. Tell Franz I said hey, and I can't believe how much
I would
makeup.
love to appear with Rachel.
Tell Franz I said we're sorry.
Yeah, no, we need to get a fake Franz, and we need to like put an animated Franz up in the corner like a Franz sticker.
I'm bald.
Yeah.
I just got to draw on a goatee, and I can do the hey y'all. Louisiana's court system is a mess.
Yeah. Now, why the hell he had to go to the Baltic for a
It's somewhere in Serbia, but it's in. I tried to pronounce it earlier when I was doing the intro, and it's like I don't know.
No, they need some God and religion over there. That is not a good part of the world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
All right, y'all.
You guys
That
have a great
that was really fun. I'm usually
was
even
super
a funnier person. I just am pissed off today. So.
Oh, that's good. Pissed off makes for good podcasting.
All right, I go. I'll talk to you later. Bye.